Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on all things related to narcissism and narcissistic personality styles and narcissistic relationships. So today I'm going to take on this issue that I know many of you have heard when you're in a narcissistic relationship, which is this idea that you have to be very careful with everything you say with a narcissist, almost the sense of walking on eggshells with a narcissist. They're very sensitive to criticism. They're very sensitive to the idea that you are you're somehow saying something about them or to them that sort of pings their insecurity. Okay, so you're very careful. And in fact, a lot of us who do this work on narcissistic abuse survivorship, when people decide to stay in these relationships, a lot of what we're teaching people about is how to be very, very careful. Okay, so if you can just kind of find a way to manage your expectations and all that. What is managing expectations? It's also knowing that if you say this or that the narcissist is going to blow up, right? So let's take a look at this idea of having to sort of walk on eggshells or be really, really careful around a narcissistic person. We know why you do it. You've done it. I've done it. Most of us have done it. But here's where it gets interesting. People who are narcissistic really, really resent when you walk on eggshells around them. And if they sense you're doing it, they actually get more enraged. This relates in some ways to what we talked about in the baiting video. Our baiting video, actually interesting for this channel, a lot of people really resonated with that idea of that. And the idea of baiting is that the narcissist will sort of draw you into a conversation. They'll actually say things to draw you in so that they can start an argument. Because remember, at some level, narcissists really, really thrive under conditions of conflict. It's actually their ground game, and they're better at it than most of us. Most of us are actually relatively averse to conflict. So let's go back to this eggshell issue, right? The one thing that the narcissistic individual doesn't like is the idea that anybody is witnessing their deficits, their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses. And the last thing they want to be viewed as is hypersensitive. They can't stand that characterization. It makes them seem weak. Now, they are hypersensitive. It's a key part and parcel of the narcissistic pattern, but they can't stand it being called out. So even if you don't go up to them and say, hey, you're really sensitive, so I'm being careful, even if you never say that, by being very eggshell walking, like you might even they'll sense your body tensing. They might sense your eyes widening. They might sense you speaking slowly, or that way we kind of twist ourselves when we're trying to say something that doesn't offend. It sounds weird. I know I do. I always look like I'm kind of like doing this dance when I'm trying to say something that's eggshelly, right? But when they sense that you're being very careful, and one of the biggest errors people make when they're talking to narcissists is they try to lay out all of this like, listen, I know you're having a really hard day, and you're amazing. You're amazing in everything you do, and you're such a great provider, and we're so grateful, and I know it's such, and when you do all of that, instead of the narcissist saying, oh yeah, you're right, thanks for recognizing me, they don't like that preamble. They don't like that prelude. They don't like that idea that you're having to almost get them into position before you talk to them. Because a person who's narcissistic is not psychotic. They're not demented. They understand enough about the give and take. How do you think they're so charming? They understand people at some level. They're just really sensitive because they're so afraid that their insecurities will be seen, and that will be shameful for them. That's their whole dynamic. But they don't like that other people know that. So when you do walk on eggshells, when you are very careful, when you're like, we don't need to talk about that, they will explode. And that's why some people will say, I feel like I can't win. When I'm open and honest, this narcissistic person gets mad at me. When I'm careful, they still get mad at me. It's quite possible that when you're being careful, when you're being a bit eggshelly, that the narcissistic person senses it, They don't like that people feel like they have to be handled, because a narcissistic person does actually perceive themselves as a fully functioning, socially skilled human being. There's a real lack of insight. It's a nature across all personality issues, but it's particularly pronounced in narcissistic personality, is that lack of insight on how they impact other people. So because they don't have that, they do view themselves as these very kinds of, like, again, self-assured, socially on point, emotionally intelligent people who know how to be with other people. And when their hypersensitivity gets activated because they perceive that they've been slighted, they perceive that someone's making fun of them, they perceive that one of their deficits is being noticed, they fly into a disproportionate rage. And if, for any reason, you try to point their disproportionate rage, like, hey, that was a really big reaction to this, or then what will end up happening is you'll face a whole bunch of gaslighting, deflection, projection, denial, and word salad. So many people very quickly learn, like, this isn't even worth doing anymore. And they say, if I want to keep this person in my life, this narcissistic person in my life, the recognition becomes, I'm not going to talk about this, I'm not going to talk about that. And by the time it comes down, you feel like you're living in a censored country, because the list of topics that you can't talk about it's like 100 miles long. Again, the narcissistic person knows it. It really is what turns a relationship with any narcissistic person into a catch-22. So many narcissistic people, because they like to be in control, they like to dominate, and they like to, many of them are extroverted. They like to be the center of attention. They often want to know everything that's going on. They actually love gossip because it's very triangulating and it gives them power, but they want to be in on everything, right? And the challenge becomes when people start eggshelling around them, they start kind of sort of tapping down, let's not talk about this, let's not talk about that. Well, then the narcissist kind of starts experiencing that sense of sort of abandonment or outsidership, that they're not getting to hear about everything, and that can also froth up their rage too. So in trying to eggshell walk, saying, let's not bring up X, Y, or Z, well, the narcissist wants to know about X, Y, and Z. They would never come out and say it. They're like, I want to hear about everything, and then I want to fly into a rage whenever I want, and then I want everyone to be okay with it after I fly into a rage. That's what they want, but they're never going to ask for it in that many words. Ergo, our eggshelling. But some of you might say, how is it I can't win? That's why. Because it is a catch-22 state where, and if you grew up like this, you might have found that your parent will say, come on, tell me the truth. You tell them the truth, they blow up. You don't tell them the truth, they blow up. So your life became a series of what we call double binds or catch-22s that you find in adult relationships too. I think that you might be wondering, so what the hell am I supposed to do, Dr. Ramani? Thanks for telling me this, but what now? You got to be a little bit more skilled at the eggshelling. So I think that it's that's why I'm saying gray rock can be such a profound kind of a strategy, because gray rock isn't so much finding the workarounds on the topic as just simply not engaging that much in the first place. Gray rock is a really desolate way to live your life, because it is, in essence, you sort of turn down all your humanity and you become sort of a robot that is saying yes, no, sure, okay, later, tomorrow. Like you're just answering facts, like as though you're talking to like a device or something. But it then keeps you from this idea of trying to talk about something in an eggshelly way. But the fact is, if somebody's in your life and you have an adult relationship with someone, there are going to be times you do need to talk about some things, and they may be big ticket things. I'd say it's a bit like swallowing bitter medicine at that point. Don't be too eggshelly. Don't do a lot of that, I know you're busy and I know you work hard and I want you to know. None of that prelude stuff. Just cut to the chase. The narcissist is probably going to react badly either way, but it might actually kind of regulate them a little if you cut right to the chase, let them yell and scream about it. Hopefully you get an outcome that works well enough for you, but the eggshelling almost makes the whole situation worse. So that's why narcissists resent when you walk on eggshells. It sort of sets them up to realize that you see their sensitivity, and it's the one way they don't want to see themselves. They don't ever like the idea that anybody is just handling them or managing them. You can't win. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Have you ever had an experience where you were walking on eggshells and the narcissist blew up at you? If you have, drop a few notes about that. We could all learn from it. Thanks again.